You are correct that the Ewes have the same oral history as the Gadangbes. The reason is because the Ewes are also direct descendants of the Hebrew Israelites that migrated to West Africa by way of Egypt to the Gold Coast and Slave Coast, migrating from Israel through Egypt, Ethiopia, Southern Sudan, Niger, Nigeria, Dahomey to Togo. The reason we have the same oral history is because we are actually one people. We're Hebrews. Let me explain. When you go back in time to a strip of land in West Africa that was once called the Slave Coast, you will notice this geographical area stretched from the Volta River in Ghana through Togo, Benin, Dahomey, and Nigeria. These four countries that now occupy this stretch of land was one territory before the Europeans met in 1844 in Berlin to define their trade zones, and as a result, divided the African continent amongst themselves.
My Hebrew name is Rabbi Yehuda ben Shomer, and my Igbo name, coming from the Hebrew, is Tochokwu, because Tochokwu and Yehuda mean the exact same thing, praise God, regarding the origins of the Igbo people. So I have a very brief and limited amount of time to do this, so let's get underway. So if we're going to talk about the origins of the Igbo people, we've got to go back to the beginning, all the way back to Noah. It's to be understood scientifically that from Adam all the way till Noah, everybody at that point was born black. How do we know this? Because scientifically it could be no other way. Melanin, which is our skin tone, you have to have an abundance of melanin. You have to have all the melanin there before you can genetically end up having a lack of it. It can't be the other way around. You can't have no melanin and all of a sudden out of nowhere produce melanin. So everybody up to that point was born black.
This strip of land from the Volta River in Ghana through Togo, Dahomey, Benin, and Nigeria was known as Ewe Nyigba, that is Ewe land. And the people that occupied this stretch of land were called Ewes. Ewe is the original name of the people who lived on this stretch of land from Ghana to Nigeria. The name, however, morphed to Ewe because the V sound does not have an English equivalent. So the letter W was substituted for the V sound, and the name and pronunciation morphed to Ewe. Ewe is actually a female sheep. Where do we see the first time this name is used in the Torah? Genesis 14. And the fugitive came and told Abram, the Hebrew. The word rendered as Hebrew here is spelled Yud Resh Beit Ayin. In English, you will spell this I-V-R-I, and it's pronounced Ewe. So the text will read, Genesis 14, and the fugitive came and he told Abram the Ewe. Abraham the Ewe. Should you read from the Dead Sea Scrolls, you won't see the word Hebrew, but rather Ewe.
So when Noah got married, he married a black woman. He married because everybody else was black. And when he had his 3 sons, it's believed that this genetic albino trait triggered the different skin tones, the different shades of melanin within the human spectrum. From Shem came Jacob, which is the father of the 12 tribes of Israel. Now, Jacob had 2 wives and 2 concubines. His wives, Rachel and Leah, were his cousins. Therefore, they were from Shem. Therefore, they had that middle of the road skin tone. They were that olive brown complexion. Now, we don't know the ethnicity or the race of Zilpah and Bilhah, the handmaids that Jacob also took as wives, but because Laban and his daughters Rachel and Leah and the concubine were living in the land of Canaan, and because Zilpah and Bilhah had this bond servant type status, this concubine status, we believe that they were probably from Canaan, and all of the Canaanite nations, the 7 Canaanite nations whom Israel came to subdue and take over the land, which is the land of promise, they were from Canaan, and Canaan was from Ham, therefore they were all black.
What we now pronounce Ewe. This is the true name of the children of Israel, the Israelites. So where did the word Hebrew come from? We know it's Eve. Where did the word Hebrew come from? The word Hebrew is an English rendering of the Latin Hebraicus. Hebrew is a derivative of the Latin word Hebraicus. A little over 2,000 years ago, Judea became a province of the Roman Empire, who had Latin as their national language. All the literature that people wrote and read was written in Latin, and those that were not were translated into Latin. During the translation of the Torah, Eve became Hebraicus in Latin. If you notice, it's nowhere near Eve. Hebraicus and Eve, it's so far apart. After the Reformation in Europe, led by Martin Luther, translations of the Bible began into English. The translations were from the Latin version of the Bible, not from the original language.
You know, and several of the other tribes, we had Judah and Levi, they also married Canaanite women, and so therefore a lot of people from the tribe of Judah and Levi are also black. We know that the Limba tribe in Africa has been traced genetically back to the tribe of Levi. We know that there are a lot of black Jews as well, because the genetics show up even though they're a dark skin tone. So we know that Judah married a Canaanite woman and had some of his sons were black as well.
So instead of using the original name Eve, they translated the Latin rendering Hebraicus to English as Hebrew. Hebrew, therefore, is a double translation of Eve. The word Hebrew is a double translation of the original word Eve. From the Volta River in Ghana through Togo, Benin, Dahomey, and Nigeria, what you have without the artificial boundaries by the Europeans is Eve Nyugba, Eve land, or Hebrew land. We used to be one people, speaking the same Eve tongue.
And Igbo is also believed to be a corruption of the word Hebrew. Hebrew, Igbo. See how similar they sound? And the second law of thermodynamics, which means everything degrades, would lend to this vocabulary instance. Just as, for instance, in English, we'll say, hey, what is up? What is up comes to what's up. What's up eventually becomes what's up. You see how it shortens over time? So it's the same with the word Hebrew. That's what the 10 tribes were considered. They were considered Hebrews. So Gad would have been considered a Hebrew. So the word Hebrew goes to the word Igbo. It's a corruption. Even the one of the first missionaries to Igbo land, which was G.T. Gadsden, an Anglican missionary, he also believed that the word Igbo was a corruption of the word Hebrew.
One will ask, how did we then lose the Hebrew tongue and now have so many dialects? Well, it's interesting, but wars have been fought, both interesting and sad. The wars have been fought, and many have died because of the problem of variation of dialect. And because of the lack of written history, we did not know we were fighting our own brothers and sisters. Who said we don't speak Eve? Who said we don't still speak Hebrew? Who said the original Evet tongue is lost?
You also had the destruction of the temple during 70 AD, which precipitated another wave of Jews and Israelites scattering abroad, some going to Nigeria. In James, the book of James 1:1, it says, to the 12 tribes scattered abroad. So up until that point, the Jews knew where their 10 brothers were scattered, because the letter was to the 12 tribes scattered abroad. So they knew that many of their brothers had made it to what we call today Nigeria. And so the letter was for them as well. So you also had the revolt at Masada. According to history, you have been taught that everybody committed suicide. All the Jews and the Israelites that were there, held up in the fortress of Masada, committed suicide. But Josephus says that some escaped, and some sailed off into the direction of what we know as the Americas, and some were believed to make it to Nigeria. You also have the modern diaspora, where people are waking up to their genetic ancestral identity, and a lot of people recognizing they're coming from the lost 10 tribes, and specifically the Igbo are making their way back to Igbo land.